Welcome to my new and improved YouTube channel. For the subscribers that I already had, It's a Hot Mess Life. But unfortunately, with life, everything that came with carrying out It's a Hot Mess Life, it was just too much and it was taking too much away from my family. So we are simplifying and just sticking to makeup for now, and maybe some more will come later. But we're just gonna do makeup now. Makeup has always been a big passion of mine, and I'm always trying to hone in on my skills and get better and work at it, and so here we are. So the reason that I've come back to YouTube is actually because I've had a lot of people on my TikTok videos asking for me to do more in-depth explanations of how I got the makeup looks that I've been creating. For those of you who don't know, I have been doing this makeup challenge where I select a palette at random and make myself use it so that I will use all of the makeup palettes that I own. Ended up starting over my makeup challenge, one because I got all my palettes messed up in the jars that I was picking from, and so I didn't know whether I had all of them in there anymore, so I basically just started out fresh and have done 10 days of that so far. My first video for this channel is not actually going to be my day one. It kind of is, but it kind of isn't. It's going to be my initial day one before I started over my challenge, which was a very pretty blue look. I'll show you a little snippet of the video that I posted on TikTok to kind of show you what I had done, and then I will show you how I achieved that look. So the palette that I was using in the video, the very first palette that I had chosen at random, which at first I was using these little jars and picking them out, along with picking out a type of makeup look I was going to do. I had made it way too complicated for myself, but either way, the very first palette that I had chosen was this Revolution Birds of Paradise palette. It is very, very colorful, very fun. So, with that being said, we are going to start dipping into this palette. This was the reason that I did the look that I had done originally. See my kid. Anyway, so let's get into this. I will show you how I achieved that look. So the first thing that I'm going to do is prime my eyes, and I am using the Milani eyeshadow primer. Alright, so when I prime my lids, I just take a small amount on my finger and just start pressing that all into my lid up to my brow bone until it's all really nice and blended out. Once I have that primer on my lid, I just let it sit. I believe the back of the bottle says 30 seconds that you want to let it sit for before you go and put any eyeshadows on, so that is what I'm going to do. So this first look that I did was just a regular smoky eye, so not like a whole lot of precision, I guess, with it. So the first shade that I used was this shade right here. This one is called Take Flight. This one is a Colourpop. I believe it's an E22. The numbers are wearing off of it, but I'm just gonna dip into that shade, get a bunch of it all over my brush, and then just start going back and forth, pretty much just all over, but mostly focusing it the crease and outer corner area. Now that I have that first shade down, I'm going to pick up this darker blue shade. This one is called Macaw, and I'm going to go on a denser brush because I want to put this lower on my lid and still have that first shade. So I don't do my makeup like this anymore because it's kind of easier to do it the way that I have been doing now, which is that typically I would be putting down that first blue shade Macaw, and then I would blend it out using that first shade Take Flight. But that's not how I did it in this one, so I'm trying to keep it pretty true to how I did it in the video that I posted on my TikTok. But I did want to point out that I would probably not do it that way anymore, and that I would do it kind of the easier way. So yeah, I'm going to take that second shade, Macaw, this blue one right here, and I'm using a Colourpop E27. It's just a denser, tapered brush, and I just want to keep this low on my lid. Still focusing it more in the crease and the outer corner area. And I just want to start building up that blue color. It's better to start out with less on your brush and build up the color than it is to try and take it away. Alright, so we built up some of that shade, so now I'm going to go back into that first color that we used, Take Flight, and I want to just blend out the tops of it. This is exactly why I would have done it the opposite way, knowing what I know now, just because it would have totally taken away from me having to go back into it. I would have just started with Macaw and then blended that out with Take Flight. So I'm going to dip back into that shade and just run it along the outer part of Macaw, just to make sure it's all nice and blended out. Plus it'll just deepen up that blue just a touch. Next thing is dipping into that gorgeous Rio shade. This is kind of like a pressed pigment kind of thing, so I didn't do this in my original video, but that was because I didn't have any, and I think that it'll work a lot better if I do it this way. So I am going to use some glitter glue. This is the Hard Candy Glitter Stay. I want to take it on kind of a smaller, dense brush. This one is a Morphe brush, but it doesn't say which one. And then what I also do is put it down like on a mixing palette. So I just put like a little drop. And I'm gonna dip my brush into it. Some people like to use their fingers, but I tend to just get it everywhere if I do. But I'm gonna start just laying all this glue down all over my lid. Then just take my finger into that pigment and start pressing it into that glue. So now I'm going to go back in with that brush and that glitter glue and start working on the other side. I'm going to just clean up the glitter that fell on my under eye, and then that's it that we're going to do for eyes right now, because it's kind of the worst of the worst where you're going to get fallout. So now we're going to start working on our face. So I'll be right back. So for face, one of the first things I do is a face primer. And I'm actually using two today, and I will explain why. But the first one that I'm using is the Wet n Wild Glass Correct Primer Base. Looks just like this. And I'm just going to put a dollop on my finger. This one is a water-based primer. I'm going to focus it on my cheeks. Pretty much everywhere, other than like my nose area. So this is also like a color corrector primer. Green is to correct redness. So if you do get a lot of redness in any areas, this is a really good primer. I haven't had any issues with it. I like it a lot. I'm just pressing it, whatever's left, into my skin, and I'm just going to let that sit for a minute and let my skin absorb it, and then I will show you the second primer that I use. The next primer that I use is the Milani Chill Out Soothing Primer. That's what it looks like right here. And this is so good for minimizing those pores. So I put it right next to my nose on either side. And I just work it into this area because this is where I have the largest pores that just stick out a lot. So all over my nose. This is also cooling, so kind of getting it up to that under eye area will help with reducing some of the puffiness. We're gonna let that primer sit and go from there. All right, so the next step is foundation. And I did get this new foundation stick. This one is from Revolution, Makeup Revolution London. And this is in shade F1. I did kind of test swatch it right here, and I think it's pulling just a little too kind of pinky. And then this is a darker shade. This one was about 2. This one was F2. I think this one's just way too dark, and this one, I don't know, I think neither of them are really my shade, but we're gonna wing it. We're gonna blend this out with a brush first to get the coverage that we're looking for. Make sure you're blending it down into your neck. Now I'm gonna go in with that beauty blender that I sprayed with setting spray and just blend that out a little bit more. So I'm now going to do some contouring, and I'm trying a new trick that I see a lot of people using, and I'm going to use a dark concealer. This one is the E.L.F. Hydrating Camo Concealer in the shade Tan Walnut. I'm just going to do 2-3 dots there. I'm going to take that same beauty blender, just going to use the pointed end and with some setting spray on it, and just start blending that out. You want to blend it upwards and into your hairline. Alright, so next I'm going to do my under eye concealer, and I'm trying another new product. This is the Revolution London Eye Brightening Illuminating Under Eye Concealer in the shade Light. All right. So I'm going to do a dot right in the corner and a dot swiping up. Down the center of the nose, in the chin, and then I'm going to put just a touch right here because it's a red spot that's bothering me. Even though this is in the shade Light, it's still so dark on me. I feel like I just need a white concealer. So we're going to start blending that out with a beauty blender that is, again, damp with setting spray. First, just let me say that that concealer is really, really nice overall. I can understand why people really like it. It's got a great coverage. It blends beautifully. But this was the lightest shade I could find, and it still was not light enough for like a brightening concealer for me. But it still works. I still really liked it, and it did a beautiful job. So, whatever. So we're moving on to a little bit of blush. So we are using the Milani Cheek Kiss Liquid Blush, and this is in the shade 120, which is Pink Flirt. I'm going to take a clean beauty blender with some setting spray, not one that I just used my concealer and foundation and contour, and just blend that out. So the first powder product that I'm going to use is this bronzer. It's the L'Oreal True Match Lumi Bronze It. This is in the shade 01 Light, and I'm using this brush. This is the Colourpop F30, and I'm just going to start dusting that in to bronze it. I try and go in pretty light And then if I want to darken it up, I can do that after, but it's a lot harder to take it away. So now I'm going to be using some Revolution Banana Powder in the shade Light, right? Yeah. And this is what I'm going to use for my under eye. So I'll just use this one. This is the Morphe E8. So I'm going to tap it onto this. Make sure not to get it into my glue. So usually I would like tap it into a cover or something, but we don't have that. First thing before I do anything to my under eyes, I want to take a beauty blender and just tap it out underneath really quick because you will have some settling. And then go right behind that with the banana powder. And do that with the other eye. For the rest of my face, I'm going to take one of these like little Amazon, I don't know what they're called, powder puffs, I think, and just kind of set the rest of my face. Now for some powder blush. This is the Milani shade 08T Rose. And I'm using the Sigma F10 brush. And first I like press it in, and then I'll start to kind of sweep it around a little bit. Always pushing upwards. A little on the nose. Once I got those on, I do go in with this really big fluffy brush. This is the Morphe E41. And I just kind of go over that contour or that bronzer in that blush and just try and blend them in together. Now I'm going to take a spoolie and comb through my brows. There's not a lot that I do with my brows because they're so full. But I do like to comb them just a little bit and tame the crazy. I'm going to do my eyeliner, which I'm using the Colourpop Cream Gel Liner in the shade DTLA. And I'm just going to quickly do my waterline. From there, we're going to go back into the palette. So I'm going to dip into that deeper blue shade, Macaw, on a small, dense brush. This one is the Morphe E36. And I'm going to start dusting that just a little bit on the bottom lash line. And then we're going to go in with the E27 that I had used on that darker shade before. And I'm going to clean it off just a touch. And dip into that Take Flight shade. And blend that Macaw shade out just a little bit. Something I had forgotten to mention in the first video of me doing this look was the inner corner. I actually didn't have one throughout that whole video, but in the videos that I had posted after, I had done a touch of color, a different color in the inner corner. I'm going to go into this color here. This one is Fiesta, and I'm using a flat, dense brush. This one doesn't have a name or a number. So this shade has a pretty good color payoff anyway. However, if you do want it to pop just a little bit, you can pick up some of the shade, spray some setting powder or setting spray on it, and it'll give it just a little extra. Now for mascara, this has been the love of my life for a while now. This is a Covergirl Lash Blast Volume. Depending on what you're looking for drama, you can do 1 or 2 coats. I have really long, dark lashes anyway, so I typically will only do 1. But this is a pretty dramatic look, so I'm probably gonna do 2 just because I'm not a big fan of false lashes, so this is kind of my way of making up for it. Fun fact, if you get mascara on your eye, either your eyelid or your under eye when you're doing it, wait for it to dry and then take a dry Q-tip and just lightly rub over it and it comes right off. Now for lips, I'm going to do probably a pretty nude shade. I did get a new NYX Lingerie XXL. This is the matte liquid lipstick. I think this is the shade I'm going to go for. This one is in the shade Turn On. To line my lips, I'm going to be using the Colourpop Lippie pencil in the shade Bumble. So now I'm going to go over that with that shade Turn On. Very last step is popping on some highlight. I'm going to be using some, I think this one is Champagne Pop, Prosecco Pop, I don't friggin' know. But it's from the Becca and Jaclyn Hill face palette. And just dab over that with my finger. And here is the final look. I'm going to take you over to the window to get some natural light so you can actually see it, because for me it just looks different in natural light. So let's go over there and do it. I forgot some setting spray. Here we are in natural light, at least as much as we can get. My lighting is very odd in my house around this hour. But tell me what you think. I think it came out better than the first time, but let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share, all that lovely stuff to show your support. I would really, really appreciate it. Please go over and follow my TikTok if you haven't already. That's typically where I post my looks first. And yeah, can't wait to do the next one.